Here's the exclusive first news on Street Fighter 3. This new version will incorporate only 2 of the original cast from Part 2, Ryu and Sagat. You know what that means. 14 new characters. Now, when Ryu does his fireball, he has an aura around him, and Sagat can do a tiger knee helicopter kick. Instead of 3 special moves per character, there are now 5, and there's no more lag time after throwing a fireball. You can now automatically connect it with the Dragon Punch. And there's no more charging to do moves like Guile's Sonic Boom or Blanca's Spinning Ball from Part 2. There will also be one command that all of the characters can use. As far as new characters, we know about 2 so far. Chun-Li's younger sister and Bison's mentor, who will be the last boss. His name is Shadow Lu. Street Fighter 3 is only a working title, even the name may change. This new game will incorporate 2 new 16-bit processors created by Capcom, which will be running parallel to each other, parallel processing. We'll have more information for you next month, and maybe a big surprise. Remember, you heard it here first. But here's what really happened. It's the mystery that gripped most of the 1990s. When will Capcom count to 3? After releasing one of the most successful games of all time, both players and critics expected Street Fighter 3. That is, after all, what you normally do. Make a hit game and release sequel after sequel until it stops selling. But that's not what Capcom decided to do. Instead of counting to 3, they released Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Alpha, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Street Fighter the Movie the Game, Street Fighter EX, and Street Fighter Alpha 2. I guess what I'm saying is that Capcom had a problem. But before the Osaka-based company had a chance to release every game except Street Fighter 3, critics and pundits had fun predicting what the game would look like. Die Hard Game Fan led the pack with so many rumors that I could spend the next 4 hours debunking all of them. I don't have that kind of time, so let's try and run through them as quickly as possible. Believe it or not, the Street Fighter 3 rumors kicked off in Die Hard Game Fan's April 1993 issue, when they revealed that Ryu and Sagat would be the only returning characters. The magazine was so sure of this information that they reported on Sagat's Tiger Knee helicopter kick. Of course, almost none of this panned out. Yes, Street Fighter 3 featured only 2 returning characters, but Sagat and his Tiger Knee helicopter kick wasn't one of them. Shadow Lu was also completely made up, but you already knew that. 1 year later, Die Hard Game Fan reported that Street Fighter 3, along with Darkstalkers and X-Men, would appear on the PlayStation, Saturn, and Nintendo 64 before hitting Genesis and Super NES. Not only did none of those games come to the 16-bit consoles, but they also skipped the Nintendo 64. With Street Fighter 3 still years away, Die Hard Game Fan continued to make lousy predictions well into 1995. In August, they reported that the future of the console depends on the all-important fighting game. Of course, the notion that Capcom might crumble without Street Fighter seems laughable in this post-2D world. After the PlayStation launched, Capcom relied heavily on Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Onimusha, and a number of other 3D adventure games. 2 months later, Die Hard Game Fan announced that Street Fighter 3 would hit in early 1996 and be a timed exclusive on the Nintendo 64. As we've already established, Capcom didn't bring Street Fighter 3 to Nintendo's 16-bit console. In fact, they didn't bring it to any of the 5th generation machines. When Capcom did finally bring the game to the home market, it was on the Sega Dreamcast in 2000, 5 years after this prediction. In December of 1995, the magazine told a harrowing story about Nintendo strong-arming Capcom into granting exclusivity over Street Fighter 3. This meant that the arcade machine would be developed on Nintendo 64 hardware, much like Killer Instinct and Cruisin' USA. But again, Street Fighter 3 did not show up on the Nintendo 64. 1 month later, they reported that the much-anticipated fighting game was already in arcades in Japan. For those not keeping track, this was a full year before the game actually came out, so these claims are dubious at best. They also don't explain whether or not this version of the game was made on Nintendo 64 hardware. Later that year, Die Hard Game Fan finally backtracked on the Nintendo 64 stuff. They didn't actually issue a correction, but did announce that Street Fighter III will use Capcom's new CPS-3 board. This is the first accurate reporting they've done in years. Die Hard Game Fan's predictions and exactly where they began. 3.5 years after starting us down this dark path, the magazine goes back to their original rumor. Street Fighter III will launch with only Ryu and Sagat. This is wrong, but by this point I've lost my will to debunk this magazine's bullshit. Or any magazine for that matter. I've been at this for a full month, and reality is starting to slip away. I swear I've been at this thing so long that I'm pretty sure I posted a video about True Lies being the sequel to Total Recall. I mean, there's no way that actually happened, right? Hi, thanks for watching the final episode of the 30 Ridiculous Retro Rumors. Can you believe we're actually done with this thing? We've covered a wide assortment of crazy rumors, from the Virtual Boy on the Super NES to Lynx games on the Jaguar. I hope you had a good time watching these episodes, and will continue to share them with friends. I don't know about you, but I'm spent. I'm ready to enjoy the long weekend with family. Perhaps catch up on the movies I missed, I don't know. We'll be back next week with, something. Maybe it'll be those reviews I promised weeks ago, or my top 10 games of 2015 list. I honestly don't know. Look, I need to lay down and sleep for like 35 hours. So, while I do that, make sure and click the subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.